In 9 years, working attractions and guest relations at Disneyland, I watched families spend an average of $412 more than they needed to, just by picking the wrong day to visit. The worst part is, most of them booked those dates 6 months in advance, locked in non-refundable hotels, bought tickets at peak pricing, and never knew there was a cheaper window sitting right next to the one they chose. Sometimes just 3 days away. And I know what you might be thinking. You've probably been to Disneyland before. Maybe you checked the crowd calendars. Maybe you've even gotten a decent deal once or twice. But here's the thing. I wasn't a guest trying to figure out the pricing system from the outside. I was the guy scanning your ticket at the turnstile, watching the same patterns play out every single week for almost a decade. The cheap days the park doesn't advertise. The pricing tiers most guests never even know exist. My name's Marcus Reed. I just left Disneyland after 9 years. Started as an attractions cast member at Big Thunder Mountain. Moved to guest relations at City Hall. Spent my last 3 years in ticketing and guest services management. And now that I don't have a name tag to protect, I can tell you what current cast members can't. If you're enjoying this already, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. It really does help us out. What I'm about to share with you isn't some loophole or hack you saw on TikTok. These are real patterns in how the park prices tickets, fills the calendar, and quietly drops attendance numbers on specific days that almost no guest pays attention to. I watched families pay nearly double for the exact same experience their neighbors got the week before. I watched honeymooning couples burn through their savings on a Saturday in July when a Tuesday in early December would have cost them half the price and given them shorter lines on every single ride. So in this video, I'm walking you through the cheapest days to visit Disneyland in 2026. The exact windows, the exact reasons they're cheap, and what you need to do right now to lock them in before the pricing system catches up. Let's start with the most misunderstood part of the entire ticket structure. Most guests think Disneyland uses peak season and off-season pricing. They don't. They use a tier system, and there are 6 tiers. Tier 1 is the cheapest. Tier 6 is the most expensive. The difference between a Tier 1 ticket and a Tier 6 ticket can be more than $70 per person per day. For a family of 4 on a 3-day trip, that's over $800 in difference for the exact same park, the exact same rides, the exact same churros. The tiers are not labeled on the website in a way that's easy to compare. You have to click through the calendar one day at a time. Most guests never do that. They just pick the dates they want and accept the price. Here's what almost nobody knows. Tier 1 days exist throughout the year, but they cluster in very specific windows. And those windows are what I'm about to show you. The cheapest single window on the entire 2026 calendar is the second week of January, right after the New Year's holiday wraps up. Specifically, the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that second full week. The park has just come down from one of its busiest stretches of the year. The schools are back in session, and the holiday decorations are still up, but the crowds are gone. I worked that week every single year, and I'll tell you, it felt like a different park. Wait times on Space Mountain dropped from over an hour on December 28th to under 15 minutes by January 13th. Ticket prices follow the same curve. If you can travel that week, do it. Book it now because Tier 1 slots in January sell out faster than people realize once February hits. The second cheapest window is the first 3 weeks of February, excluding the President's Day weekend. February is what we used to call the dead zone internally. School is in session everywhere. There's no major holiday driving traffic. Valentine's Day brings a small bump on the actual day, but the rest of the month is wide open. Tuesday and Wednesday visits in early February are almost always Tier 1 or low Tier 2 pricing. Hotel rates around the Disneyland Resort drop significantly during this window as well. I had cast members who saved their personal vacation days specifically for February visits because they knew it was the best value of the entire year. Now, here's one most people get wrong. They assume summer is always expensive. It is, but not every day. The week between Mother's Day and Memorial Day weekend, usually around mid-May, is one of the quietest stretches the park sees all year. Schools are still in session, graduation hasn't started yet, summer travelers haven't begun booking. If you can find a Tuesday or Wednesday in that specific window, you're looking at Tier 1 or Tier 2 pricing in a month most guests assume is already Tier 4. I watched annual pass holders bring their entire extended families during that week year after year because they knew the secret. Speaking of secrets, real quick, if you're finding this helpful so far, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these breakdowns. And the notification bell, make sure you actually see them when they go up. Let's keep going. The next cheap window catches a lot of people off guard. The first 2 weeks of September, specifically the Tuesday through Thursday stretches in those weeks. Kids are back in school across the entire country. Labor Day has just passed. Halloween time has started, so the park is decorated and you still get the seasonal overlays on the Haunted Mansion, but the crowds haven't caught up yet. Ticket prices in early September are some of the lowest of the year, often dipping into Tier 1 territory midweek. I had so many guests at the turnstile during that window who told me they couldn't believe how empty the park felt. That's because they were paying Tier 1 prices in a Tier 4 atmosphere. The week after Halloween is another gold mine. November opens with one of the biggest pricing dips you'll see all year. The Halloween crowds clear out by November 2nd. Thanksgiving travel hasn't started. Holiday decorations begin going up around November 9th, but the first full week of November stays quiet. Tier 1 Tuesdays and Wednesdays appear in this window consistently. And here's the bonus. If you visit during the second week of November, you actually catch the holiday overlays starting up. Jack Skellington is back at the Haunted Mansion. The Small World holiday version is running. You pay Tier 1 prices for a near-holiday experience. That's the kind of timing that separates guests who know the system from guests who don't. Now let's talk about a window that surprises almost everyone. The first 2 weeks of December, before December 15th. I know what you're thinking. December is the busiest month of the year at Disneyland. And you're right, after the 15th. But that first 2-week stretch is one of the most underrated windows in the entire calendar. The park is fully decorated. The Christmas tree is up on Main Street. World of Color holiday is running. But school is still in session, and most families wait until winter break to travel. I worked dozens of December shifts in those early weeks, and I watched guests walk onto Space Mountain with a 5-minute wait while paying Tier 2 prices. After December 15th, that same ride hits 90 minutes, and the ticket cost jumps to Tier 5 or 6. The difference is staggering, and it's all in those first 2 weeks. Let's talk about something most people don't think about. The day of the week matters almost as much as the season. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are consistently the cheapest days throughout the entire year. Mondays can be cheap, but they often catch a long weekend tail from Sunday travelers. Thursdays start to climb because weekend travelers begin arriving. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are almost always Tier 4 or higher, regardless of season. If you're planning a multi-day visit, structure your park days around Tuesday and Wednesday. Use Monday and Thursday as travel or rest days. You'll save hundreds on tickets alone. I had a couple come through City Hall once asking why their friends paid so much less for the same week. I pulled up the calendar and showed them. Their friends went Tuesday and Wednesday. They went Saturday and Sunday. Same week, same park, almost $200 difference per person. Here's something the park does not advertise. If you buy a 3-day or longer ticket, the per-day cost drops significantly. A 1-day Tier 1 ticket might cost around $104. A 3-day ticket averages out to around $75 per day. A 5-day ticket can come down to around $55 per day. Most guests buy 1-day or 2-day tickets because they think they can power through. They can't. The park is too big now. 2 parks, 2 nights, all the new attractions. Even if you only plan to use 3 days, the math often favors buying the longer ticket if you're flexible. I cannot tell you how many guests came to guest relations after their first day asking to upgrade their tickets. And the upgrade pricing is not as friendly as the original purchase pricing. Buy the longer ticket up front if there's any chance you'll use it. Quick break here. If you've made it this far, you're clearly serious about doing this right. Please hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell. I'm telling you things I literally couldn't say while I was still working there, and I want to make sure they actually reach the people who need them. Let's move on. The next thing you need to know is about the SoCal resident ticket offers. If you live in Southern California, Disneyland runs limited resident ticket deals almost every year between January and May. These tickets are not advertised heavily because the park doesn't want non-residents trying to figure out workarounds. They're sold through specific zip codes, and they offer 3-day visits at a fraction of standard pricing. If you live in one of those zip codes, set a calendar reminder for early January. They go on sale, and they sell out. Even if you don't live there, it's worth knowing they exist because they tell you which months the park itself considers slow. If the park is offering discount tickets, that means they're trying to drive attendance, which means crowds will be lower than usual. Another thing most guests miss is the Magic Key program. The annual pass program at Disneyland is now called Magic Key, and there are different tiers. The lower tiers have blockout dates, which is why the park can afford to keep them affordable. If you visit Disneyland more than 3 days in a year, even spread across multiple trips, a Magic Key often pays for itself. But here's the part nobody talks about. Magic Key sales open and close at specific times of the year. When they reopen, you have a short window to buy in. If you miss that window, you're locked out until the next reopening, which can be months away. Watch for those announcements. They're posted on the official Disneyland site and shared on cast member channels first. Here's a pattern most guests never catch. Disneyland increases prices almost every year in October. The new pricing takes effect immediately for ticket sales going forward, but tickets already purchased remain at the old price. If you know you're visiting in 2026, buy your tickets before October of the previous year if at all possible. I watched guests in line at the ticket window in November cursing because they could have saved $50 per ticket by buying just 2 weeks earlier. The price increases are not always announced in advance. They just happen. Stay ahead of it by buying early when you've locked in your dates. Let me give you the dates I would personally choose if I were planning a trip in 2026 with no other constraints. The week of January 13th through January 15th is my top pick. Tier 1 pricing, holiday decorations still up, crowds gone. My second pick would be the week of February 10th through February 12th. Tier 1 or low Tier 2, hotel rates at their annual low, weather still pleasant in Southern California. My third pick would be the week of September 15th through September 17th. Halloween time in full swing, kids back in school. Tier 1 midweek pricing. My fourth pick would be the week of November 10th through November 12th. Holiday decorations starting up, no Thanksgiving traffic, low tier pricing. Any of those 4 windows will give you the best combination of low cost, low crowds, and a fully active park. Real quick, before we get to the last few tips, please take a second to like this video and subscribe if you haven't yet. The notification bell makes a real difference for what you see next from me. Now here's something I want you to understand about how guest relations actually works. When you walk up to City Hall or any guest services window, the cast member behind the counter can see things about your visit you don't realize. Your ticket type, your Magic Key status, how many times you've visited in the past year, whether you've had any prior issues or complaints, and whether you've contacted guest services before. That information shapes how flexible the cast member can be with you. If you're polite, specific, and you have a clean history, they can often help you in ways that aren't part of the standard menu. A complimentary lightning lane swap, a reservation accommodation, a small ticket adjustment. But that flexibility disappears the moment someone starts demanding, raising their voice, or trying to play the system. I had a guest come to my window once who had visited 11 times in 2 years, always polite, always patient. Her family ran into a weather closure issue. I moved a lot of internal pieces to make sure her trip was fixed, because her record told me she deserved it. The same week, I had a man yelling at me about a closed attraction. He'd done the same thing on 3 previous visits. I helped him within policy, and absolutely nothing more. Cast members want to help you. Give them a reason to. Here's one more thing before I wrap up. If you're booking a hotel inside the Disneyland Resort, the Grand Californian, the Disneyland Hotel, or Pixar Place, room rates also follow tier pricing. The same windows that give you cheap tickets also give you cheap hotel rooms. The Grand Californian during the second week of January can be $500 a night cheaper than the same room during Christmas week. If you stack a Tier 1 ticket window with a low-rate hotel night, you can cut a Disneyland trip cost in half compared to what your neighbors paid for an identical experience. The resort is one ecosystem. The cheap weeks for one are usually the cheap weeks for the other. Plan them together. Here's the thread running through all of this. The cheapest days to visit Disneyland in 2026 are not random. They follow predictable patterns built around school calendars, national holidays, and the park's own internal pricing tiers. Tuesday and Wednesday visits in the second week of January, the first 3 weeks of February, mid-May before Memorial Day, the first 2 weeks of September, the first 2 weeks of November, and the first 2 weeks of December. Those are your windows. Book them now. Stack them with a longer ticket. Pair them with a hotel rate during the same tier. Be polite at guest relations. Buy before the October price increase. Those are the levers you can pull right now today, before the pricing system tightens up for the new year. I'll tell you what I learned in 9 years inside that park. The guests who had the best experiences weren't the ones who spent the most money. They were the ones who knew when to go, what to ask for, and how the system actually worked behind the scenes. They were the ones who showed up on a Tuesday in February while everyone else fought for parking on a Saturday in July. They paid less. They waited less. They left happier. Now you have what you need to be one of those guests in 2026. Before you go, please make sure you've liked the video, subscribed to the channel, and turned on the notification bell. It's the only way I can keep making these. Next time, I'll walk you through the 5 sentences that got guests free park hopper upgrades I wasn't technically supposed to approve.